I think while we were waiting to get set up, can I just get a sense of who's here, what you guys are interested in, and so on? I think that might help. I mean, how many of you are developers? Okay, or what, marketers maybe, business people? What kind of marketing? Angel broking. Okay. Okay. Use it. Okay. What about you? I see. What about you?
I'm from payment space.
Okay. All right. What about you guys?
I'm from insurance.
I'm sorry?
Insurance.
Insurance. Okay. Want to market those things and so on. Okay. Cool. How many of you built a bot? How many of you have heard of a bot? Chatbot? Yeah. Okay. And what interests you about this topic, or why are you here? I mean, what are some of the things you'd like to be answered before the end of the session? Anyone? Yeah?
Marketing agent, what kind of chatbot feature?
Okay. Okay. Anything else? Yeah.
My name is Avinash and I'm from an engineering EPC company, not from IT. I want to know how this chatbot or any kind of bot can be used in manufacturing.
Okay. All right. Anyone else?
I wanted to check if you can use this to engage returning users.
Engage returning users. Okay. Okay. Some of the others, you just bribed to come and sit here? Like, no? Or arm twisted into coming here? Yeah.
I deal with a lot of pharma companies, so it would be good to actually they are looking constantly for unique ways of reaching out to their doctors, because
Right.
they are not allowed to
I
directly
know.
advertise.
That's right. Okay. So marketing to doctors and so on. Okay. Cool. And so you guys, I mean, at least the ones of you who are in marketing, you do some marketing campaigns and so on. Have you? You said social media and things like that, right? Kind of thing. Or organic. Okay. Content marketing and things like that. Got it. All right. Cool. And how many are you from this incubator? I mean, 91 Springboard. Okay. Some of you. All right. The others are from outside, I guess. Okay. Cool. Are we live? Okay. Looks like we are live. Okay, why don't we do this? I can get started a little bit even without this. And I think when the slides come up, we'll pick it up from there. So I think one of the latest buzzwords recently is all around bots and AI, and in particular the buzzword is sort of conversational, right? So I'm hoping to dive deep into conversational. What does that mean? Why is it interesting? Why is it important? And how do you use it for your respective businesses, right? Whether it's for marketing, or if you're a startup, or if you're a manufacturing company and so on, or marketing to doctors and such. What can you do with it, right? And I think the way I like to think about it is, sort of that we are on every decade or so, the interface, the way we use computers changes, right? So if you think about it, over the last 30, 40 years, in the mid 80s, right, right after the birth of the PC, when you bought a computer, what would you start using it with, right? You'd use it with the primary way in which you use computers was a desktop, right? It would have a desktop operating system, and it would have desktop applications, and you download the desktop application and use it on your OS, right? And then in the mid 90s, everything changed, right? What was the new mechanism? The web, right? This time, the browser is the starting point, and the web browser is the starting point, and websites are the applications, and you use the browser to visit websites to do different things. And then again, as we went along, in the mid 2000s, it changed yet again. This time it was the small screen, the smartphone, right? The smartphone OS, so Android and iOS is the OS. And then, so you had mobile OS as the platform, and then mobile applications were the applications, right? So in each of these cases, let's say in banking or gaming, they used to have a desktop application, then they had a website, then they had mobile apps. And now we are on the verge of yet another shift, right? And this time it's all about messaging and chatbots, right? So when I say messaging, it means apps like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, Slack, Telegram, but not just text, it could also be voice, right? You have Alexa and Google Assistant and services like that. So, so these are the new sort of platforms. These are the new starting point. This is what you use, and then you use that the chat app to go visit chat bots, basically, right? And what is a chatbot, right? A chatbot is really just a program that can chat with you, right? That can have a conversation with you. So today, I'm sure everybody, I don't even need to survey, everybody uses WhatsApp, everybody uses Facebook Messenger, and you can use it to chat with your friends. But what if, just like you chat with a friend, you could also chat with a business, right? Let's say Domino's, or you know, your local grocer, or any e-commerce, Amazon or Flipkart or whatever, right? Now, obviously, when Flipkart is chatting with its customers, they have millions of customers, so it can't be manual, so it's automated. And once it's automated, like literally any service, right? Any startup, any business, any service, you can buy train tickets, railway timetable, book a taxi, order pizza, buy items, look up news and information, and so on and so forth, right? So you can do, so you know, when you have, so as we move to this world of messaging and chatbots, suddenly the new interface, right? It goes from structured interfaces like you had on websites and apps to conversational interfaces, right? Because how do you interact with a friend? How do you chat with the program? It's really just a conversation. You send a query, you get a response, you send another message, you get back another message, and so on and so forth, back and forth, right? So that's why I think it's going to transform all kinds of interfaces. It's going to, you know, everything that you do on websites and apps is going to become available on, is going to become available through chatbots, and therefore everything, right, all structured interfaces become conversational. And once that happens, right, every aspect of business, every aspect of any company also becomes conversational, because this is how your customers are going to talk to you, your employees are going to talk to you, you know. So really now what happens then is you take every business function, right? What do businesses do? There's marketing, there's sales, you know, there's customer support, right, in terms of how it interfaces with customers. And then there's commerce, right? So each of those things become conversational, right? So so you have conversational marketing, conversational commerce, conversational support, and so on, right? So in this session, you're going to focus more on conversational marketing. How does it work? How do you you know, how do you build these services? How do you interact with customers, and so on and so forth? So, right? So let's look at it from the standpoint of marketing itself and how it's evolving as technology evolves, right? So in the early days, let's say in the days of web, you know, or in the days of email. So in the earliest phase of marketing was all sort of outbound marketing, right? So print, television, radio, and even web to quite an extent. A lot of it is sort of push-driven marketing, email marketing, and so on. You really sort of send out, you take your message and blast it out to people, right? And you try to do the best targeting you can, but still there's huge inefficiencies because a small percentage of your user base or a small percentage of the audience are really interested in what you have to offer, but you can't tell which one up front, so you broadcast it to everybody. Creates a lot of noise, creates a lot of perception, but it drives awareness, it's effective, and to this day, I think at least in India, print and TV account for about 85 to 90% of the advertising spend. So clearly, you know, it's still in the, you know, in the outbound marketing phase. I think in the West you'll see much more of sort of other channels as well emerging, right? And then when you think about, but beyond a certain point, people said, look, it's expensive, it's inefficient, it's really even ineffective in many ways. So what's a better way to do it? So inbound marketing was the next phase, right? And in inbound marketing, you say, instead of blasting things out to people, you create interesting stuff that people seek out, right? So you create blogs, you create interesting content, right? Create newsletters and so on, and then you offer it selectively through, through search engines, through opt-in newsletters and so on, through social media and driving referrals, right? So social media was a big driver of sort of content marketing because selectively people would forward things that they are interested in to their friends as well, right? And now when you think about it, the next phase of marketing is going to be conversational marketing, right? So in conversational marketing, you can have the marketer and the consumer has one-to-one conversations, right? Powered by a chatbot because it's all automated. But these are individual, highly personalized conversations, which means it's not sort of this one size fits all. It's not the same thing that's told to everybody. You have different messages for different users, and then because it's personalized, you can maintain context, you can maintain state, right? You can say, I know this user, I know how many members in the family they have, how old they are, what they like, what kinds of pizza they've ordered in the past, so that the next time they order, or where do they live, what do they shop for, and so on. So in the process, you build an ongoing relationship with the customer, right? It's not like you have a little interaction, a transaction, and then you're gone, because like in chat, right, the conversation threads persist, and they persist forever in a way. So you can always go back and see what's happened and so on. Which means now the marketer can build a one-to-one relationship with the consumer. In a way, it becomes literally like a friend, an advisor, a guide that helps the user over a long period of time. Yeah. Oh, okay. Thanks. All right. So if you think about it, right, there's a big difference between earlier methods of marketing and the conversational framework, right? Previously, it's sort of one-to-many, right? You create one thing and you offer it to many people. Whether it's outbound or inbound, it's still sort of the same thing offered to everybody else. But when you talk about conversational, it's very targeted, right? One-on-one kind of messaging. In the earlier methods, think of kind of yell and sell, right? You just sort of shout loudly, look at TV ads, right? I mean, every like 5 minutes, they're playing the same thing again and again, and they hope that the jingle sticks in your head and, sort of drives purchases. But here, you're trying to chat, you're trying to build a connection with the user, you're listening, right? In one-on-one conversations, you can't do that. You can't shout at the other person. You can't just speak and not let the other person speak, right? So it becomes a very different thing. So it's no longer just a campaign where you're shooting out messages to everybody. It's a conversation, a two-way conversation, right? An interactive conversation. Again, instead of the focus on big data, which means you do data mining to figure out what do users like, how do they like it, and so on and so forth. Now you focus on small data, meaning data about that user, right? Personalization. If you know that this person has these habits, they live here, this is the age group, these are the family members, these are the things they buy. It doesn't matter what 1,000 other people are doing or 1 million other users are doing. What matters is what this person is doing, right? And that can dramatically impact the conversation and the experience and so on, right? And then again, in sort of big campaigns and so on, you have digital agencies that spend a ton of time figuring just the right commercial and the right banner ad and the right display. But conversational marketing is much more authentic, right? It's sort of, and it's instant and it's available. And when the user asks a query, it has to provide a response. And, so you trade off. You don't have the time to sort of perfectly script the whole conversation, but the fact that it works is very, very powerful, right? So over time, what happens is as you build this relationship, the way you have to think about it is if you have a brand or a service or a startup or a company, right, in a chat environment, you kind of have to personify it, right? If it was a person, what kind of what kind of personality would it have? Would it be a friend? Would it be an advisor? Would it be, you know, a guide or an assistant, and so on? And I think that determines how people think about your service, about your company, whether they buy, they trust you, whether they interact with you, transact with you, and so on and so forth, right? So it makes a huge difference. And you know, I think I'm going to go into some of this in some more detail, but some of the elements are, you know, your customers would converse with you, have a conversation with you through text or voice, right? Could also be on your website or app, but instead of clicking around screens, they're just sort of chatting with you, right? Many websites have these chat widgets where consumers can chat with the service, so this makes it much easier. The conversation can be structured or unstructured. Later on, I'll show you some screenshots, maybe some demos as well. You know, like I told you, it's personalized, it's very contextual, you know, you sort of maintain, you remember, right? Think about it in conversations. When you're chatting with your friend, right, you don't have to repeat every time saying, hey, we went to college together. I mean, that person knows for the rest of their life, right? You expect in a chat conversation to be, it's very different, right? And that's also one of the reasons why the rise of WhatsApp has happened, because people you feel much more comfortable chatting with friends and family and people who know you and people you know, and you remember all this in your head, so that, you know, so when you say something like, hey, let's do it again, right, you know, and the other person knows what you're talking about, but that kind of thing just doesn't work. You don't have that kind of familiarity in sort of big environments and so on, right? So you build an ongoing relationship. We talked about sort of the personality as well, right? So, so this is how marketing is evolving, okay? But then the question is, okay, how do we actually implement? How do we do this, right? So interestingly, even in terms of technology, right, many of the trends are converging. So most of this, so messaging apps now, right, are becoming very conversational. Now, what I mean by that is the following, right? Today, if you think about it, of course, for person-to-person chat, a lot of people have shifted from, let's say, SMS to WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or services like that, right? But I'm talking mostly about business communication, right? Marketing communication and so on. So today, what happens? How do you get notifications from your bank, from your e-commerce company, from taxi company, from restaurants and so on? How does it happen? Right? SMS. You probably, every time you swipe your credit card or do a transaction or order something, you get an SMS notification, right? And it's really just a plain, simple, dumb notification, right? It tells you something happened. But what if you want to dispute it? What if you want to get more details about it? What if you want to look at the history? How much credit balance is remaining on my credit card? When is my payment due, right? Can I get a scanned copy of the check, right? Every transaction is or let's say package delivery. Can I reschedule it? I'm not going to be at home, or I want to change I want to change the product or return it, right? You can't do any of that. So what happens is most enterprise messaging, business or marketing messages, they're just very simple notifications. But now that's changing. It's changing to what we call smart messaging, right? Or conversational. It enables these sort of conversational experiences, and I'll show you more about it, right? So like I said earlier, smart messaging, right, is going to impact every aspect of business, right? Whether it's around marketing, around commerce, around support, and these are just examples of a conversation. Like I was saying, imagine if you can chat, there's a particular offer, and then you want to see details, and is it eligible? How long is it? Can I make a reservation right there, right? So imagine you can interact with marketing messages, or with commerce, right? You're looking for certain items, and you can shop and navigate and discover. Or if you have a problem, customer support, right? How many of you have called a bank or a telco and been instantly connected to the right person at the right time, and like in a minute or two your conversation's done, right? Anybody have that experience ever? Right? Impossible, right? So wouldn't it be nice if you could get instant, accurate, quick responses without having to worry about it?
The question would have been anyone who's had
I think everybody. Exactly. No, I think in particular in countries like India, right, it is a real problem because there's so many consumers. Businesses are swamped in the sense that unit margins are low, right? So it's impossible. Like how many customer support people can you hire to have full-on experience? So there's a huge gap between the demand and supply, which means customer support quality suffers and suffers big time. But these sort of automated chatbots enable you to do that, right? So whether it's sort of shopping, you go to a shopper stop or something. Let's say you want help. Where can I find this particular item? What floor is it? It's hard to find people, get the right information, so on and so forth. But suddenly all of that could be available. Or you get a deal or an offer and you want to make a booking, right? So you get something about a movie theater, then you have to go to Book My Show, or you have to go to some other app and you need to do something and something happens, and it's sort of all kind of very fragmented. Oh. All right. So smart messaging, right? So the interesting thing is, right, instead of one channel now, smart messaging can operate across many different channels, right? In fact, let the consumer decide what their preferred channel is, right? Let's say if you're a multinational company, you may have users across different apps. If you're in China, it's WeChat or Line or Kakao or WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger or Slack or Telegram. It doesn't matter, right? It could be any of these channels. Right, so it could be any channel. I was saying it could also be voice channels, right? It could be Amazon Alexa, could be Google Assistant, Cortana, and so on, right? You can create all of these experiences across text or voice. Could also be on a website or an app, and so on. So it's possible in in many different ways. The other interesting thing is, most SMSs, in fact, all SMSs are just plain text, very, very limited. Not rich, not interactive, no images, no emojis, right? No audio, video, nothing. And from a marketing standpoint, it's very, very limiting, right? It's really hard to engage with these users or to do interesting things, but now you can create delightful experiences and really draw people in and engage them in very interesting ways, right? And then, when we talk about conversational, the ability to have a conversation back and forth allows you, or rather requires you to have, some more intelligent capabilities, right? Can you handle natural language processing, right? Because users may say the same thing in 20 different ways, right? I want to book a flight, I want to make a booking, I want to reserve a flight, I want to fly from Bombay to Delhi, okay, I want to go from Bombay to Delhi. All of it means kind of the same thing, said in 10 different ways, right? So natural language processing sort of has to handle that. Or cancel, delete, remove, stop are all related and so on, right? So can it handle that? Can you leverage AI and so on to do that? Then how contextual is it? Does it remember, like I was telling earlier, right? Does it remember the state, history of past transactions, personal situation, profile, things like that, preferences, and so on? Can you personalize the whole experience, right? So smart messaging sort of allows you to do all of that, and so on, right? And once you do that, it delivers tremendous benefits, right? The conversion rates, right? Like I said earlier, if you send out an offer, if it is displayed nicely, very interactive, allows the user to ask questions. Okay, is this valid? If I buy 3 of them, do I get a discount? Okay, can you get me details? What's the eligibility? What's the validity? What other options are there? And then you want to buy, right? Versus just a little message. So the conversion rates are substantially higher, right? For conversational marketing, that's a really big deal. And then going forward, right? Engagement is much higher. Instead of just one kind of broadcast message, you are getting, sort of a deeply interactive, engaging. Can you guys hear me? Okay. All right. So the engagement level is also much higher when when people are able to fulfill their queries, right? Instead of the user having to do the way I like to describe it is in traditional sort of websites and apps, right? People have to behave like computers, but in conversational interfaces with chatbots, you have computers behaving like people, right? Which means, let's say when you go to a hotel or a restaurant, and you go ask somebody, they don't say, okay, read this manual first to figure out your answer, right? You just ask your question and they give you a precise answer that relates to that question. So it's really customized. It's really, appropriate. It's sort of computers behaving like people, which makes a huge difference in terms of, engagement levels, right? And then finally, of course, savings, right? Most businesses today send out a ton of messages, SMSs, and SMSs can be very expensive, but a lot of these digital channels are very, very cost effective, right? For the same reason that you no longer send Happy Diwali message, you'll find out, right, in a week, there used to be a time where you'd receive like everything in your SMS, right? And then it suddenly switched, I think, when was it, 3 or 4 years ago, suddenly everything switched to WhatsApp, right? And literally, I can't think of anybody who sends SMS messages anymore, right? It's just all on WhatsApp. So that's happened for person-to-person communication. In the same way, is going to happen with business messaging. And in fact, WhatsApp is one exception. They haven't opened up APIs yet, though they're doing beta tests and so on. So that should happen very soon. But certainly with other channels like Facebook Messenger and so on, right, you can do a lot of these things very, very quickly. So and then I'm not going to go through everything about Gupshup. I just want to share a little bit of context, as in, like we were discussing earlier, we have the platform that enables all of these conversational experiences as a lot of different things, right? So there's in particular, at the lowest level are these messaging APIs, which allow connections to 30 plus channels. It's a single API that connects to all of it, so businesses don't have to worry about what to do, right? And then the next level up is building these chatbots, and these, so it's a bot platform with a lot of tools, which allow you to handle incoming user queries, right? And then on top of it are the sort of campaign tools, which then allow you to create or craft sort of conversational marketing campaigns, right? Because you want to send out messages and then allow users to reply to them, and when they reply to them, the bot handles those queries and so on. So all of these sort of work together seamlessly to enable, conversational experiences, right? And okay, just one sec. All right, so so this is just some details around how it works, right? So there's a little dashboard that allows you to create, right? So it's like other marketing dashboards, but here the difference is your call to action, right, is not, okay, call this number or do something. It's actually a conversational click through. It could say, learn more, read more, discover, check availability, things like that, right? So it's a conversational sort of call to action. Could be multi-channel, and then some other things are common with other dashboards like targeting and scheduling and so on, right? The other aspect is on the bot platform, we have a very rich set of capabilities. Over 25,000 plus bots have been built on our platform and counting, right? And we have different kinds of tools, right? So if you're a coder, if you're a developer, there are coding tools that allow you to build bots. But if you're a designer or a marketer, you can use graphical tools to just structure the conversational flow, right? No coding skills required. And then if you're a business user, there are predefined templates that enable you to build bots very quickly for common use cases and so on, right? Also, there are NLP and AI tools. We're also one of the first companies to have launched something called Interbot, which is even more advanced. It enables bots to talk to other bots so that you can combine them to do more interesting things. And that can actually, it's a longer discussion for another session perhaps, but just having bots talk to other bots they can collaborate, they can compete, they can transact, negotiate with each other, maybe even upgrade themselves or clone themselves in interesting ways. So I think it's just very advanced capabilities. Also, we have partnerships with a lot of other major companies in Silicon Valley. So there's a lot of tools that are available for building these rich experiences globally, right? And then finally, like I was saying earlier, we have a lot of rich APIs, which are the foundation that enable all of these things, right? And then just a whole bunch of good infrastructure and so on. A lot of customers sort of use Gupshup. I think every major bank and e-commerce company and so on and so forth. About 40% of the messages, SMS messages that you get today go through our servers. And then a lot of that is now migrating to smart messaging and so on, right? So anyway, I'll skip this part. But what I want to do now is actually, let's make it real, right? Some of these were just sort of general ideas. I just want to do a quick demo and show you. Before we do that, let me just pause. Were there any questions? I went through a bunch of different things. Any questions so far or clarifications that you need? Yeah, so he's asking about analytics tools, reports. Yeah, are there any analytic tools to figure out if the user is comfortable having a conversation with the bot, right? So I think some of the tools are very similar to web and app analytic tools, but clearly conversations are different, right? Because there you need to, so I think that's kind of evolving, right? Because conversational tools it's hard to say whether the conversation is succeeding or failing. You can decide whether, you can evaluate whether the user reached their objective or not. And maybe you can say, did it take them 5 steps or 10 steps to get to the same point and optimize it and decide it and so on. So I think there are quite a few tools that have different levels of capabilities. I mean, we have some analytics tools in Gupshup itself. There's also things like Dashbot and bot metrics and botalytics and quite a few. Okay. Okay, so I think I'm going to do a little demo or a test where you can all participate and you can actually see it on your own mobile device, right? So what I'm going to simulate is, imagine there's a marketer that wants to, send a message to their community, right? So let's say it's a bank or even a restaurant or anything in between. They usually have a list of phone numbers for their customers. And then they say, okay, I want to send them a message, but I don't want to send an SMS. I want to send them an interactive message. Okay. Except that, for something like Facebook, you need the user to opt in, right? You can't just spam anybody just like that. So the first message may go through as an SMS, but after that, all successive messages will go through Facebook Messenger and so on. Okay. So are you also ready? Okay. So here's what I want you to do, right? I don't have right now a database, but you are going to be my test database, okay? Which means you're going to give me your mobile number and then we'll send you some sample messages. And the way you give me your mobile number is you just give a missed call to that phone number and then the rest of it will we'll take it from there. When we give a missed call, you'll receive a message right away. And in fact, it's very clever. You'll notice that some of you may receive one, but some may receive 2 messages, okay? And I'll explain in a second. Let's just everybody get past the initial thing and just hold on. Yeah, everybody get a message and a click. And did you guys accept? Okay. And I think we're going to send you another test message after this. So, what is the second message, Sean? Anybody having problems with any of this?
Yes. Oh, you don't have messenger. Okay. No, just messenger. Just click on messenger. Speech messenger.
Yeah. Is anybody here who doesn't have Facebook Messenger? Okay. Welcome to 2017. Are you not on Facebook either?
I don't use social media on my app.
On your? Okay, got it. Okay, so so there's a few interesting things that we did here, in case you noticed or not, right? So what we do is, I have no idea what's happening here. So anyway, so what we do is, right, when you make a missed call, we get a phone number, right? But normally, like I said, if you're a bank or a restaurant, you'd already have a large database. And then what we do is, the first thing we try to do is we try to send a message through Facebook Messenger, meaning we take that phone number, map it to your Facebook ID, and send a message. So if Facebook knows your phone number, which means if you set it up in the profile, then we can match it, and you would get a message directly through Facebook Messenger, okay? But for demo purposes, just to be safe, right, because it won't work 100% of the times, to be safe, we also sent a second message through SMS, which is guaranteed to reach. So that's why I was saying some of you would have received one, some of you would have received two messages based on us receiving your number, right? But either way, you have to, the first question that's asked is accept, right? It says get started or something. So when you click that SMS and come into the bot, now what you've done is, you've given us permission to sort of engage with you, and therefore the brand or the marketer now can build a relationship on an ongoing basis, right? Now you have to be a little careful because you can't start spamming either, because Facebook itself is monitoring, block rates, users can leave, users have a lot of control, right? You can opt out, you can block it if it is annoying you too much, and then if the block rates go up, that can be a problem as well. So it is already self-regulating, so it doesn't ever get out of hand. But now the point is, if you're providing useful content, interesting content, there's an opportunity for people to engage with you, right? There's a great opportunity to build a trusted relationship, to send more messages, to send more information, and so on and so forth, right? So you must have seen some different kinds of messages that must have arrived, but I'll. So now that you get the idea, I can show you some other sort of examples, and I will go through it very quickly. But let's say, a bank could send. So a bank can send, instead of on the left-hand side you see a typical SMS that they would have sent, but on the right-hand side is an interactive message, which along with the notification. Right, so in this case, it has to be a secure message, right? So if it's highly sensitive data, then it doesn't show up in the messaging thread. It shows up in a separate web view, for example. Or let's say, you get a bill payment notification. But what would be nice along with that is to get other details, right? Of what's the current status, account details, payment details, and so on and so forth. A balance inquiry. Right? Instead of just giving the balance, people may want to do other things that you can provide these services as well. These are some promotional examples, right? Normally, you just get an SMS and at most it might have a click to a PDF or something, but it's sort of back to the same thing. But here, you can actually, have, and was that one of the messages we sent, so on? E-commerce message or, yeah. So it can send you things like, know more, learn more, and maybe specific content related to that offer that you can have multiple conversations back and forth and sort of answer that, right? Even cross-promotion campaigns, right? Users are using one thing, but then you can promote other things and so on. So, yeah, I think financial alerts, right? Imagine, yeah.
Yeah, my question is, can that link be adapted for people who are still not in 2017 to maybe detect automatically whether it has to open in Facebook Messenger, or I may have a Telegram, or I may have a WeChat but not a Facebook Messenger because of...
Yeah, so I think, So yeah, the link can be adaptive in that sense, right? Certain apps allow you to be detected. So we've done that for certain. Doesn't work for every app, but works for many apps.
Yeah, so maybe we have 2 or 3 options also.
Yeah.
Then I could at least test for something which allows you to test. And
Correct.
then it does default to something that does not allow you.
Correct. So we could have sent a message saying which is your preferred channel, and then over time, see, this is not the only way in which a brand is going to connect with the customer, right? The brand will also connect through. They have stores, they have retail presence, they send out, they mail statements, they do advertising, they do print ads on the website, etc. Okay, I was just giving one illustrative example, a small demo in this session, right? But in a brochure or on the website, it could say, okay, here are all the identities, connect with us on any channel, right? Or it could be a friend referring to another friend, or it could be in a brochure, or you call customer support and they'll say, hey, which channel do you use? And I'll send you a link for that channel. So, or even the automatic thing, right? We could sort of just create a transient web page which says which channel would you like to connect on, and then it connects through that. So all of those are possible, yeah. I was talking here about financial alerts. Talking about financial alerts, right? Where today there's a lot of stock information that's sent out, but wouldn't it be nice if you could also send charts and graphs and all kinds of analytic information along with that, right? If you're trying to create product awareness, right? You launch a new product or a new offering and you want to explain it to people. Wouldn't it be nice if people can just sort of inquire and learn more about the product and kind of go from there, right? So these are some examples from the e-commerce side. Like order tracking. I was telling you earlier, your package is going to arrive at a certain time. Can you track it? Can you reschedule it? Can you return it, cancel it, etc. Right? So all of those options could be right there in the message. Now, technically, yeah, you could go to the website, you could open up, log in, go to the orders page, find the right order and do it. But wouldn't this be the right place to do it, right? Just when you get that notification, it contextually knows, gives you the options, the next steps that you can take, kind of thing. Or even deals and offers, right? It's a lot of these things are impulse buy, right? You see something, you want to quickly make a reservation, make a booking, or see if it's available, next week, not this week, and things like that, right? So it just instantly, that, like I said, so the way to think about it is, today, every notification is just a standalone message, meaning it just ends there. But the way to think about it is every notification is the start of a new conversation, right? So something happens, right, and you get a notification, but then there's always 5 other things you want to do, maybe, with it. And the right place to have that link, the right place to start that conversation is that message itself. And that's why, right, that's the whole point of conversation marketing. So make these messages very, very interactive. Because it's not enough. It's not enough to say, okay, call me on a phone number, go walk into the store, go to the website, go to a certain page and do certain things. It kind of has to be right there, in line in that message. Okay. Customer feedback, right? Again, best time to capture feedback is when you're sending a notification and after a support query or whatever it is, kind of thing. The other cool thing about messaging apps are, guess what? Along with all the businesses, your friends are also right there, right? Which means it's a very powerful mechanism to drive referrals. So if you tell your customers saying, hey, refer a friend, it's actually very easy to do. A couple of clicks and you're done, right? It's very hard in the offline world. So whenever you see these, every time in tech history, we've seen that when making referrals becomes easier, people do it more often. If it is hard, I like the product and I'm happy to tell my friends about it, but if it's inconvenient, I'm not going to do it, right? But if it's really a couple of clicks, I would certainly do it. Just more likelihood of that happening, right? Drives up conversion rates and so on and so forth. Some examples from sort of customer engagement, right? Imagine airlines, right? Where you could You have a flight, you get an SMS notification and it says, okay, the flight's delayed by 3 hours. It's like, you can't stop there with that information, okay? Because now I want to check again an hour later when I'm about to leave home. Is it still delayed or has it gotten further delayed? Is it cancelled? And by the way, if it's cancelled, can I book again? What are the options that are available, right? Can I upgrade? Can I buy my sandwich and drinks, right? Can I check in? Can I check in my bag? I mean, there's so many things that you have to do. And today, all they give you is that little notification, right? So it's really frustrating because you get that notification, then you have to pull out the browser, you have to do some, 3 other things to get something and so on. Can be very, very powerful, right? In fact, and airlines are still relatively a little more organized, but you look at any other places like malls, restaurants, stores, and so on. Everywhere there's a line, right? Think about it. You don't need a line anymore, right? You could just reserve your place in the queue through your bot, and then when your turn comes, it'll notify you. So you don't have to physically stand in that 1 square foot of space jostling with other people so that somebody doesn't cut in, right? Wouldn't it be nice if you just had the perfect virtual line, nobody can cut in, you can track, you can monitor, maybe you can go out, get a coffee, come back when it's your turn again, right? It's just so much easier, so much better to engage through sort of these kind of things, right? Recharge notifications, right? Suppose you've forgotten, you have to do something, you get something, you just say yes, and it knows what your preferred recharge amount is because you've done that 10 times in the past, and so on, right? Or I should also be able to say, oh, by the way, can you recharge my mom's phone? And that's it, it knows what to do, it knows who I am, it knows who my mom is, it knows what her number is, what the amount should be, and get it done, right? It just makes it really so highly personalized, contextualized, quick, simple, easy, and it's kind of in the moment, right? When you get a notification and you remember something, you do it and then you move on, so it just drives up a lot of productivity, efficiency, all that kind of stuff. In fact, we've launched or are just launching with one of the big satellite TV providers so that you can do recharges just through a bot and so on as well. This is about media, it could be market research, customer surveys and feedback, customer satisfaction, evaluations and so on. Could also be polling and for news and media organizations. So, right, again, like in all these things, right, if it's quick and easy to provide the feedback, people do it. But if you're going to make me, how many times have you had this, like, they'll give you a form and give you a pencil and they'll expect you to fill it out, and it's like, seriously, I'm in a rush, right? Typically at a hotel, when you're just about to leave, they want you to fill that form, and it's like, come on, right? It's just so much easier if it's on my device. I could be in the car, right? I could be stuck in traffic, I could be waiting at the airport or at the train station and still do these things because it's easy and it's on my device, right? One less thing to worry about, so. Another thing we are seeing a lot of customers doing right now is, a lot of Diwali messages, right? So in fact, you'll see that over the next few days will be coming through these sort of smart message channels, right? So businesses engaging with customers, and or it could be birthdays, could be it could be tied to a special offer, saying, hey, we have a gift for you. Pick one of these 5 options, whichever you like, and they'll be sent to you. And even the gift could be an electronic voucher, so it's sort of instant gratification. You don't even have to wait until it arrives, and then you order something somewhere else, and so on, right? Can be very powerful. And then, of course, right, so a lot of it, so conversational marketing is not just sending the push message, but also handling the pull queries, right? If the user wants to pull some information, then whatever query they have, the chatbot can handle and respond to, right? So it could be, do you have, it's the weekend, do you have any movie offers, right? Or I'm at mainland China, do you have any restaurant sort of discounts available? and so on. So in the moment, right, again, when you need it, when you think of it, you just ask a question, get a quick response, and be done with it, right? So it's sort of, imagine it's kind of like the perfect assistant, the perfect customer support person, the perfect relationship manager, sort of, and always on, always instant, middle of the night, doesn't matter. You kind of ask your question, get the response, and kind of get going. So very, very powerful. Yeah, another remarketing just refers to your existing customers. You want to send them messages, right? So you might say, okay, people who bought in the last 1 month, I'm going to send a message. Or people who live, my customers that live in the Mumbai area, I'll send them a message, or and so on and so forth. So you can kind of, ultimately it's a lot easier to upsell and cross-sell to your existing customers than it is to acquire new customers, right? So this makes it much easier to engage with them, right? So the way to think about it is, every brand, right? Every business has customers, and today you just think of, they're kind of independent entities. They're out there, they do their thing, and someday they come back, and so on, right? Think about restaurants and so on. You go to a restaurant frequently, but they don't talk to you, they don't know you, you don't know them. Every time you walk in, they think you're a stranger, they put you in. But there's a difference, right? Somebody who's coming here every day, versus somebody who just comes once in a while. So what businesses or brands should do is think of your customer base as a community, right? As a set of people that you're connected to constantly, engaging with, interacting with, occasionally sending them messages, and every time responding to their queries, right? So it's a live, active customer community. And when you think of it that way, right? So like this little test that I did, right? So let's say if the restaurant, everywhere you go these days, it's kind of bizarre, right? They'll make you fill out a register. I don't know what they do with it. Maybe they sell it or something, but or maybe they just spam. But wouldn't it be good if they say, okay, right? Like instead of filling out that register, just like this missed call thing or whatever it is, or maybe look at the bot, sign up to the bot. And once you've done that, we'll send you offers. And by the way, you can track every time you come here, right? We'll give you an extra point. And then if you've done 10 or 15 times, you get like a free lunch, or a free soda or free ice cream or whatever. I mean, it's just such a huge opportunity, right? That most businesses simply don't take advantage of, right? So remarketing is a really really big deal, that every business should be doing that, okay? And in a way, this is even more powerful than what you can do on Facebook and Twitter, right? I mean the social media side. If you think about, so today every business brand, they'll have a Facebook page, and maybe let's say they have a 10,000 likes or 1 million likes or maybe 10 million likes at most, right? And then what happens? So you post, like doesn't mean that customer is going to see everything you post, because the customer, right, Facebook kind of filters the different feeds. So when a brand posts a message, maybe a small fraction of the people who like that page will see that, okay? So you're not really able to engage with your fans, with your followers, if you will. But when you build a community through these messaging channels, that's a direct one-to-one unfiltered connection, which means you send a message, you can send a message to 10 million people without anybody stopping you, okay? Now it's also risky, because if you don't do a good job, half of them will drop off, right? But think about the power of that, right? Every business now is in permanent connection, a live connection with every one of their customers, and how much you can do with that, yeah. So it's really, really powerful. Okay. Then, I think certainly the ability to send sponsored content, right? Especially news and media organizations, they could have sponsored content or messages. If it's a sports site, this thing is brought to you by Adidas or whatever it is. So in that sense, even startups, if they can build up a big customer community, they can monetize it by putting ads in there, kind of thing, right? So and you use content to bring users in, and then you monetize through advertising to enable sort of a deeper engagement and such. So very, very powerful. Okay, I think that's all the use cases we had. Does that make sense? Does that help you kind of understand the various things you could do? What are you guys going to do with it? Any thoughts? What are you going to do with it?
I was thinking if I want to target strangers instead of already customers, then what could be the channels? Facebook, you cannot be a channel. The own website.
So you want to target strangers? Well, to target I mean, certainly, all the usual channels, right? SEO, SEM, print, media.
The own website is can be hosted.
Well, I think the whole messaging thing is all based on opt-ins, right? So there is no way really to sort of, do a broadcast to strangers through messaging channels. So I think that the point you have to, so you have to think of it differently, which is you do the broadcast in other places, but do the sort of do the ongoing engagement through these things. Yeah. So.
So the broadcast can be done through the website also.
Yeah, I mean, you can, of course, on your website you can put a link saying, hey, connect with us on Facebook Messenger, connect with us on Slack or Telegram, right? So yeah, you put that up on the website, but once they connect there, then they've opted in to receive your messages, right? So the way to think about it is it's very critical in this whole conversational marketing thing. It's very critical to get your customers to opt in and to stay opted in, right? Which means you can't abuse that trust, that relationship, right? It's a little bit like on WhatsApp, right? I mean, you guys all know there are certain groups that get really noisy and we all leave them. And then there are other groups where there's a certain etiquette, there's a certain behavior. You can't imagine you send 20 messages to your friend like every day. I mean, they'll get fed up with it, right? So I think it's the same kind of behavior. I mean, literally each business or brand has to think of itself as a person and saying, okay, what kind of content and how much and how frequently should I be sending this to my customers, right? Yeah.
I just want to ask, Facebook opened up their platform for their bot in, I think, April 2016.
Yeah.
How's been the uptake in US market? It seems like more advanced.
Sure. Yeah, you're talking about the uptake of bots on Facebook Messenger, right? So I think this is hello. So yeah. So we are official partners with Facebook, and I'm based in Silicon Valley, and I attended a lot of their events. So at the last conference in April, so a year after the initial launch, they talked about 100,000 bots have been built on Facebook Messenger, and they talk about 2 billion messages a month being exchanged between businesses and consumers. So I think it's sort of still early in terms of, I expect there to be millions of businesses, millions of bots over time. So in that sense, it's still early, but it's quite amazing for 12 months of growth, right? And some analysts have done research and compared the growth of the sort of bot ecosystem compared with the growth of the app ecosystem before it and the web ecosystem before it. And the web ecosystem, took probably 5 years to get to 1 million websites or something, 5 to 10 years. And the apps took like maybe, 3 to 4 years. And bots are on track to do that much, much faster. So this is sort of exploding. And I think in India, it'll probably explode a lot faster once WhatsApp opens up APIs. But what we like to tell people is, it's better to be ready for WhatsApp. Start with Facebook Messenger. Firstly, most users here do have Facebook Messenger, and in any case, like I said, it's a single API. So once something works on Facebook Messenger, it can instantly, on day one when WhatsApp launches, it'll be ready and live, right? But there's a lot of learning to be done, a lot of iteration, A/B testing, and so on, which is easy to do on Facebook Messenger. So even if not all your customers will have it, most of them certainly will.
And the second question is a lot of promises get done on WeChat in China.
Yeah.
How much of it is attributed to chatbots?
Well, so China, China, this is frustrating. Okay, so China grew very differently, right? So they have something called the sort of mini web pages inside WeChat, right? But so what they did prove is that the messaging app is a powerful way to do additional things, to do all kinds of business. But the chatbot thing is just happening there. In fact, they are behind Silicon Valley in terms of developing chatbots. They still don't have very good APIs, and there are different SDKs and so on, right? But some of the amazing examples are very, very relevant here. Like say, think about it, right? The best way to visit a restaurant should be, 10 minutes before I get there, I'm going to order my food. Okay, then I walk into the restaurant, sit at a table, I check into the table because the number is written right there. My food arrives, I eat and I walk out because I've paid already, right? So I didn't interact with a single person. I mean, there's no conversation required, but the whole bot flow, right? So you don't wait in line, payments, ordering, order taking, checkout, all of that is just done, right? So things like that become really, really simple. Person-to-person payments, right? Any service provider comes in, you're at a store, and so on. Or I don't know if you've seen the Amazon sort of vision video, Amazon Go, right? The store of the future, where the store is right there. You walk in, pick up what you want, walk out, right? It recognizes you, it bills you, and everything is done. So think of every place that we wait in lines, right? Or just waiting for something to happen. It's just a complete waste, complete sort of productivity killer. And all of that time can be given back to people, right? And even if it's going through a queue, you don't need to stand there. You just get your place and you can monitor and track and walk up when you're ready. So WeChat there's a lot of lessons to be learned in terms of use cases. They work slightly differently. They're not a bot, but I think that's sort of secondary. I mean, there it's implemented as a mini web page. Here it's a bot. But the use cases are still very, very relevant. Yeah. Yeah, it's really powerful. What about you? What are you going to do with bots? And then, to what purpose? To use it for what?
For my business.
Which is?
So I am not working on the spot. I am trying to understand how what works.
Okay. Got it. Cool. Online casinos. Is it even legal here? I don't know. Okay. So I'm sorry. So I didn't understand the question. What do you? Well, I guess. So you're asking me how to do something illegal in a legal way. Is that? Okay. Okay. I'll think about that. I'm sorry, you were asking something.
So I think the use cases
I just.
mentioned were in terms of push notifications and
I know, but it sort of goes in and out. Okay, let's try it again. Yeah. Okay.
and interaction with businesses when you query something.
Yeah.
So are these also being used as in like when you have a general conversation and based on the context of the conversation, there are these bots that will provide businesses that give you entry to that conversation and provide you businesses related to that. For example, you're talking about eating out and then you get notifications from restaurants. So is that too intrusive?
Yeah, I think that's true. Well, that's too intrusive, right? So what happens is now Google has been talking about some things like that, right? So if you're using Google's, I think Allo, one of their chat services, then the Google bot is always listening to every conversation, and when it listens, hears something about eating out, then it may make recommendations about restaurants and things like that. But I don't think that's gone very far, and I think most people kind of find it intrusive. I don't think anybody wants it, right? So far it's all been about explicit, right? If you want a bot, you explicitly invite a bot, and then the bot will talk to you. And maybe that bot is a search bot, meaning it can help you about food and this and that, many different things. But so far it's not been the case, right? Most cases have been just explicit one-on-one interaction between a user and a bot. You don't want a bot listening to a conversation between two humans, because it leads to a lot of privacy issues, right? People are talking about Alexa in the home, right? Is Alexa listening? In fact, there was I don't know if you heard the story where some genius asks Alexa how to dispose of a dead body, okay? And then it became evidence in a police case, because they said, wait a minute, Alexa heard this, and it proves that this person was looking. It's a little bit like, this man asking me how to advertise casinos here, right? So I think you don't want the serious privacy issues in many of these things, and you don't want to do, you don't want bots being too smart or too intrusive either.
Facebook does listen, by the way. I was just speaking to someone on Facebook Messenger on the web interface, and I just said, hey, let's meet tomorrow at certain time, and there was a button over there saying create a plan here, which means Facebook knew that, and it made sense out of that conversation.
Right.
People are deciding a place and a time to meet, and then that plan, if I would have clicked on that, it would have probably put it on my timeline saying that, hey, this guy is meeting this person at this time.
Yeah, so I think we have to, I think we have to get more comfortable. I mean, clearly Alexa and so on. So what Alexa does, or Google Assistant, right, is they listen for the hot word, it's called. So in Alexa's case, it's Alexa. So until it hears that word, it doesn't record anything. It listens just enough to understand if that word was spoken, and after that word is spoken, then it remembers everything. Okay, but before that, so it's not listening into it. So I think it's still early days. We'll figure out what kind of privacy levels people are comfortable with. Yeah.
Just to take as a question forward, so one of the earliest indicators whether this is working or not working will be the unsubscription rate.
Correct.
So what is it so far based on the
So your question's about unsubscribe rates, right? I think most brands have been very conservative so far, right? So nobody is kind of
experimental.
Yeah, people are trying, so there are subscription bots and news bots and so on, right? So they send you a daily alert and a daily update and so on. And I think it's been fine. I mean, people kind of like it. If you overdo it, it gets to be a challenge, right? So see, the pull conversations is not a problem because it's all user initiated. It's only the push. So I think for push, 1 or 2 a day is normally the maximum you want to do. Of course, it depends on the business, depends on the context and so on. Even that may be too much, so it really depends. But that's sort of a good rule of thumb to keep in mind. Yeah.
How do you select, there's a choice between a lot of NLPs and AI.
Right.
What's in how do you select AI or NLPs? Some test cases, you open it for some test cases.
So how to select an NLP tool? Well, in my case, it's easy. I just use Gupshup. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think there are different tools that often have different strengths and weaknesses, or they may be better suited for different languages, different domains, and so on and so forth. Right? So I've heard of some people developing a benchmarking service which allows you to compare different NLP services across different data sets, but it's hard to generalize, right? Because it depends on what your query set is, what your domain is, and so on and so forth. So I don't know if there are any simple answers to that, and even if there was an answer, it'll keep changing over time. So you kind of need to know the answer on an ongoing basis. Yeah. So it's yeah, it's evolving. I mean, it does take some trial and error and so on, right? But I think if you're building version 1 of an NLP bot, I think just pick something that's simple enough and easy enough for you to understand and play with and so on, right? A lot of these tools are very, very complex. So in our case, we created a scripting tool. It's like an authoring tool that makes it very easy. You just describe the conversational script and it just works, and you can get it done in like a few hours at most without needing to be a major NLP expert. So that makes it much easier. And it's backed by an NLP engine. So and we've leveraged like 40 years of AI research to build that. So it's not like, I mean, that's what everybody does, right? So they're all reasonably comparable, and just get started with something that's easy to use. Okay, yeah.
Just wanted to understand like the commercials of putting up a bot like a messenger or something like that. So is it like people you might think that they would charge the services, but they would just charge for to put in a bot in the messenger?
So commercials, you're talking, who's they? Are you talking about Facebook charging you?
Yes, Facebook charging you.
So Facebook so far doesn't charge anything for putting a bot or messaging. Okay, but if somebody is developing a bot for you, then they may charge a development fee. If somebody has hosted a bot, then they would charge a hosting fee and so on, right? But there's no fee charged by Facebook per se, or not yet, I should say. Right?
The question was, how much does Gupshup charge?
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, he didn't ask that, but you asked that, so let's use that. No, I think it depends. I think all of our tools are available self-serve, and you can try easily, and there's sort of free trials available for everything. If we also have a services team that develops bots. So if that does it, that depends on the scope. Can be anywhere from $1 lakh to a few lakhs, depending on the scope of the complexity. And as far as the ongoing fee is concerned, there's a per message fee that we charge for the hosting, the monitoring, the updating, and things like that. Yeah. And that's kind of the normal for most platforms. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
This is good, if I think of a B2C market or something with industry. Do you think of any of the examples if I think of a B2B market or B2B sector?
Yeah, so I think even in B2B examples, right? Let's say employees interacting, so the company is tracking KRA, KPI, sales targets, employee attendance, all of that could be done through these sort of things. Daily reports and business metrics and so on. Even between businesses, right? Payments, invoices, tracking, deliverables, shipping status, stock status, warehouse facility status, manufacturing, are machines up or down or something, right? So every report, every dashboard could now be available on the bot. In fact, we've done that even like in our own system, right? So Gupshup has a system for marketers to use, and then they want to track reports. We just make it available through a bot. So now you don't need to go to a website to do something. It's just available on your mobile device anytime, anywhere, kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, cool.